A billionaire finds a little girl lost in the rain at the park. She looks at him and asks, "Did you come to take me home, Daddy?" When he hears her mother's name, he's completely paralyzed. The rain was pouring hard that October night. Michael Carter walked quickly through the empty park, his leather briefcase protected by his coat, as he tried to shield himself under an umbrella, fighting against the wind. His expensive Italian shoes, flawless that morning, were now soaked and muddy. He cursed under his breath, thinking about the hellish day he had just endured. The meeting with the investors had been a disaster. Figures that didn't add up, poorly prepared presentations, and incompetent subordinates. Michael was 35 years old and already the CFO of Nexus Capital, a position many would take decades to achieve. But that night, he wondered if the price had been worth it. The shortcut through the park would save him 10 minutes on his way to his apartment. 10 minutes he planned to use to review reports before bed. It was always like that. Work, more work, and then a bit more work. His life had revolved around that, ever since Emily Hayes had left it 5 years ago. He was so lost in thought that he almost tripped over the small figure standing in the middle of the path. Michael stopped abruptly, dropping his briefcase into the muddy ground. "Damn!" he cursed, and only then did he realize he wasn't alone. A little girl stood right in front of him, completely drenched. Her pink dress, now darkened by the water, clung to her small, trembling body. Her dark brown hair dripped over her shoulders, but it was her eyes that paralyzed Michael, huge, brown, and filled with an inexplicable hope. "Did you come to take me home, Daddy?" The words hit Michael like a punch to the stomach. "Daddy?" He looked around, searching for anyone who could explain what was happening. The park remained deserted. I think you're confusing me with someone else," he said, crouching to her eye level. His voice came out harsher than he intended. The girl shook her head decisively. "No, you're Michael." "I know because my mum has a picture of you." Michael felt his heart skip a beat. "How do you know my name? Who is your mother?" "Emily," the girl answered, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Emily Hayes." Time seemed to freeze. Michael remained there, kneeling in the mud, feeling the rain drench him completely while Emily's name echoed in his mind. Emily Hayes, the love of his life. The woman he had left behind in the name of ambition. What's your name?" he managed to ask, his voice almost a whisper. "Olivia," she smiled, revealing a small gap where a tooth was missing. "Olivia Hayes Carter. I'm 4 years old." Michael did the math quickly. It was possible. Emily had ended things with him 5 years ago. If she'd been pregnant then... "Are you cold, Olivia?" he asked, trying to control the tremor in his voice. She nodded, hugging herself. Without a second thought, Michael took off his coat and placed it over her shoulders. The coat swallowed her small figure completely, but at least it would keep her dry and warm. "Let's get out of this rain, okay? There's a cafe right over there." He pointed to the lights on the other side of the park. "We can have something warm, and you can tell me more about your mum." Olivia smiled and, to Michael's surprise, stretched out her little hand toward him. He hesitated for a moment before accepting it. It was so small and so trusting. "Mommy said one day you would find me," she said as they walked together under the umbrella, now tilted to protect her. She was right. The cafe was almost empty at that hour of the night. A sleepy attendant cast a curious glance at the man in a soaked suit, and the little girl wrapped in an adult coat that looked more like a blanket on her. "A hot chocolate for the girl," Michael ordered, "and a coffee, really strong for me." They sat at a table in the back. Michael grabbed some paper napkins and tried to dry Olivia's hair, which she seemed to find more amusing than anything else. "You're not very good at this," she laughed. "Mommy does it like this." And she demonstrated a rubbing motion on her hair that somehow looked much more effective than Michael's clumsy attempts. "Sorry, I don't have much practice," he admitted. Looking at her now, under the cafe's light, Michael felt a lump in his throat. Her eyes were Emily's, the specific shade of brown he'd never seen in anyone else. But the shape of her face and her chin, they were undeniably like his. "Olivia," he began cautiously, "how did you end up in the park all by yourself? Where is your mum?" The little girl's smile vanished, replaced by a worried expression. Mommy's at work. Mrs. Patel was supposed to watch me, but she fell asleep. I saw your picture on Mommy's desk and I thought if I found you, you'd take me home. She lowered her head. Mommy's going to be mad. Don't worry, Michael tried to reassure her, though he felt far from reassured himself. We'll find your mom and explain everything. She works at night. Olivia nodded. At the hospital. She fixes people. Emily was a doctor. Of course, that was always her dream. Back in college, when they met, she was just starting medical school. Michael remembered how he used to help her study for anatomy exams, how she spoke with passion about saving lives. The waitress brought the drinks. Olivia grabbed her mug with both hands, blowing on the steam before taking a sip. You have a chocolate mustache, Michael commented, and she laughed, wiping her mouth with the sleeve of his coat. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine what it would have been like if he had known about her, if he had answered Emily's calls after they broke up, if he hadn't been so consumed by his own ambition. Olivia, he began again. Your mom, Emily, does she talk about me? Olivia nodded while taking another sip of her hot chocolate. She has a box full of your things, photos and letters. Sometimes, when she thinks I'm asleep, she looks through everything and gets sad. Michael felt something crushing inside his chest. She said you left because you had important things to do, Olivia continued, with the brutal honesty only a child can have. But that one day you'd come back, and now you did. Michael couldn't answer. How could he explain to a 4-year-old that he hadn't left? He simply never knew she existed. How could he explain that it was his own stupidity, his obsession with success, that cost him the chance to see her being born, to watch her first steps, hear her first words? We need to get you home, he finally said. Your mum must be worried. When they finished their drinks, the rain had dwindled to a light drizzle. Michael picked up his soaked briefcase, and together they left the cafe. Where do you live, Olivia? In the blue building near the duck pond, she replied. Michael knew the place. It was a modest set of apartments, not far from there. Nothing like the luxurious loft he lived in now. The thought of Emily and his daughter, living in such a simple place while he amassed a fortune, made his stomach churn. The walk to the apartment was short, but for Michael, it felt like a journey through all of his past choices. Olivia talked non-stop, telling him about her school, her friends, her pet fish named Bubbles. Michael absorbed every detail like a man dying of thirst in the desert. When they reached the blue building, Olivia guided him to the 3rd floor, apartment 303. Michael hesitated before knocking. What would he say to Emily? How would he explain the unexplainable? But Olivia didn't give him time to think. She knocked on the door with her tiny hand, calling out, Mommy, look who I found. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then hurried footsteps, the sound of several locks being opened. The door swung open. Emily Hayes looked exactly as Michael remembered and completely different at the same time. Her brown hair, once long down her back, now barely reached her shoulders. There were new lines on her face, worry lines, exhaustion, responsibility, but her eyes, the same eyes Olivia had inherited, the eyes he saw in his loneliest dreams. First came relief on her face at seeing Olivia, then pure shock at recognizing Michael, and then something he had never seen before in her eyes, anger. Olivia, she exclaimed, pulling her daughter inside and positioning herself protectively in front of her. Where were you? I got home and Mrs. Patel was having a panic attack because she couldn't find you. I went to look for Daddy, Olivia replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And I found him. Emily looked at Michael with an expression he couldn't fully decipher. There was anger, certainly, but also confusion, fear, and something else, something that looked terribly like pain. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice low and controlled, clearly so Olivia wouldn't catch the tension. I found her in the park, alone in the rain, Michael explained. She called me Daddy and... Emily, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. Olivia, honey, go change out of those wet clothes. Now. But Mommy... Now, Olivia. The little girl looked between the two adults, sensing a tension she didn't fully understand. Reluctantly, She went inside, leaving Michael and Emily alone in the hallway. "You need to leave," Emily said, the moment Olivia disappeared into the apartment. "Emily, please." "No," she interrupted, her voice a furious whisper. "You have no right to just show up after 5 years. No right to confuse her like this, no right to mess up our lives." "I didn't know about her," Michael tried again, his voice pleading. "If you'd just let me explain." "Explain what?" Emily cut him off. "That you were too busy climbing the corporate ladder to take my calls, that you blocked me everywhere after we broke up, that when I finally managed to speak to your secretary, she said you didn't want any distractions from the past." Each word was like a knife, and the worst part was that Michael knew they were all true. "Please," was all he could say. "She's my daughter." Emily let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "Now she's your daughter. Where were you when I spent 20 hours in labor? Where were you on the nights when she had a fever and I didn't know what to do? Where were you on birthdays, Christmases, her first steps, first words?" Michael had no answer. There was no excuse to erase 5 years of absence. "Mommy," Olivia's voice came from inside the apartment, "is Daddy staying for dinner?" Emily closed her eyes, exhausted. When she opened them, Michael saw something in them that scared him more than anger, resignation. "Do you want to come in?" she asked, her voice suddenly tired. "She won't sleep until we have this conversation, and I have an early shift tomorrow." It was more than Michael had hoped for. "Yes, thank you." The apartment was small but cozy. Toys scattered across the living room floor, a stack of children's books on the couch, colorful drawings on the fridge held up by magnets. It was a home he should have helped build. Olivia appeared wearing star-patterned pajamas, her hair still damp but now combed. "Daddy, do you want to see my room? I have lots of books and—" "Olivia," Emily interrupted gently. "We need to talk. Why don't you go get your cereal while I speak with your dad?" The little girl nodded and ran to the kitchen. Emily waited until she was out of earshot to turn to Michael. "I tried to tell you," she said, without preamble. "I called you for weeks after I found out about the pregnancy. I sent emails, messages. I even went to your office once, but they wouldn't let me up." Michael felt shame burn his face. He vaguely remembered missed calls. He remembered telling his assistant to filter every call that wasn't from clients or associates. At the time, he was trying to get over the breakup, throwing himself into work, avoiding anything that reminded him of her. "When I realized you truly didn't want to hear from me, I made my decision," Emily continued. "I decided to raise Olivia on my own. It was hard. I had to pause med school for a while. Then I went back to studying at night while my mother took care of her. I graduated 2 years ago. I'm in my residency now." She spoke with a calm that Michael knew was only on the surface. He knew her too well not to sense the torrent of emotions underneath. "I never told her you didn't know about her," Emily admitted. "I thought it would be easier for her to think you were, I don't know, away, busy. That one day you might come back. It was better than the truth." "And what was the truth, in your view?" Michael asked, his voice hoarse. Emily looked straight at him. "That you chose your career over us, that you probably wouldn't have stayed even if you had known about Olivia. That, for you, nothing was more important than success." Her words hurt because they were true. Or at least, they had been true back then. Michael wasn't sure if they still were. "Olivia," came the voice of the little girl, returning with a bowl of cereal almost spilling over. Emily smiled at her daughter, a genuine smile that lit up her tired face. "Thanks, sweetheart. Why don't you eat while we talk to—" "Michael," Olivia frowned. "You mean Daddy?" Emily gave Michael a warning look before sitting beside her daughter. "Olivia," she began softly. "Remember when we talked about how some families are different? Some kids live with their mom and dad together, others just with their mom or just with their dad." The little girl nodded, chewing her cereal. "Well, our family is the kind where you live with me and Michael, your dad, lives somewhere else." Olivia seemed to think about this for a moment, but now he's back. He can live with us. Michael felt his heart clench. Emily took a deep breath, searching for patience. "It's not that simple, honey. Adults, sometimes things are complicated between adults." "Why?" That direct, Simple question only a child could ask. Emily looked at Michael, and for the first time he saw a silent plea for help. "Olivia," he began, kneeling to be at her eye level. "Your mom's right. Things are complicated. I've been away for a long time, and there's a lot I need to learn about you, but I'm very happy to meet you now." "Are you going away again?" Olivia asked, her big eyes suddenly worried. Michael hesitated, glancing at Emily. He wanted to promise he'd never leave again, that he'd always be there, that he'd make up for every lost second. But it wasn't his promise to make, not without Emily's agreement. "I'd really like to keep seeing you," he finally said. "If your mom allows it." Emily crossed her arms, her face unreadable. "Please, Mommy," Olivia begged. "Let Daddy stay." Emily looked at her daughter, then at Michael. He could see the internal battle in her eyes, the desire to protect Olivia versus the desire to give her the father she'd always wanted to meet. "We can talk about it after you finish your cereal and go to bed," Emily said at last. "It's getting late." Olivia didn't look happy about the answer, but she knew better than to argue when her mom was firm. She finished her cereal in silence. While Emily took Olivia to brush her teeth, Michael was left alone in the living room. He looked at the photos on the wall. Olivia as a newborn in Emily's arms, Olivia at 2, smiling with honey all over her face, Olivia on her first day of school. Precious moments he would never experience firsthand. Emily returned after a few minutes. "She wants you to say goodnight." Michael followed her to a small bedroom decorated with stars on the ceiling and shelves packed with books. Olivia was already in bed, hugging a well-worn plush bunny. "Good night, Daddy," she said, sleepy. "Will you be here tomorrow?" The question broke his heart. "That depends on your mom," he answered honestly. "But I hope so." He hesitated for a moment, then leaned in and kissed her forehead. "Good night, Olivia." Back in the living room, a heavy silence fell between the adults. Emily got straight to the point. "What do you really want, Michael?" He considered his answer carefully. "I want to know her. I want to be part of her life." "Why? Because you suddenly feel guilty?" "Because she tugged at your heartstrings when she called you Daddy." "What happens when the novelty wears off and you go back to your busy life?" They were fair questions. Questions Michael himself wasn't sure he could answer. "I don't know how to prove I'm serious," he admitted. "I only know that when I saw her today, something changed inside me. I can't undo the last 5 years, Emily, but I can be here from now on, if you let me." Emily sighed, running her hand over her short hair. "It's not that simple. She's already attached to you, and she barely knows you. If you come into her life and then walk away, it would destroy her." "I won't walk away," Michael promised. Emily let out a dry laugh. "Excuse me if I don't trust you. Our history doesn't give me any reason to—" She was right, of course. Michael had lost her trust a long time ago, and he knew words wouldn't be enough to win it back. "What do you suggest then?" he asked. "Because I'm not giving up on her, Emily, not now that I know about her." Emily thought for a long moment. "We can start slow. Supervised visits. No making her big promises you can't keep. No expensive gifts trying to make up for lost time." It was more than he'd hoped for. "Thank you, Emily. Really," she nodded, exhausted. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for her." Olivia always wanted to meet her dad. Michael wanted to say more, wanted to apologize for everything, wanted to explain how empty the last 5 years had been despite all his professional success. But he knew this wasn't the time. "I'll go then," he said, standing. "Can I come back tomorrow after your shift?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "At 6. Don't be late." "And Michael, yes. If you hurt her, if you come into her life only to leave again, I will never forgive you. Never." The threat was real, and Michael knew it. But for the first time in years, he was sure of what he wanted, of what really mattered. "I won't disappoint her," he promised, and this time he meant to keep it. 3 weeks had passed since the meeting in the park. Michael drove his Audi to Emily's apartment for the 3rd time that week. His personal assistant had already gotten used to rearranging his schedule to accommodate these visits, and the partners at the firm had begun to notice his earlier departures and emails answered after midnight. He parked near the Blue Building and took a deep breath. In the days following their reunion, he had tried to process the complete turnaround in his life. A daughter, 4 years of absence, a family he never knew he had. As always, he took the stairs instead of the elevator. Emily lived on the 3rd floor, and he used those 2 extra minutes to gather his thoughts. When he knocked on the door, Emily answered, wearing hospital scrubs and looking tired. "Hi," she said curtly. "Olivia's almost ready." Michael stepped inside. The apartment was no longer strange to him. He knew the second-hand couch Emily had bought when she moved in, the small kitchen table with mismatched chairs, Olivia's toys that seemed to scatter no matter how often they were put away. "Rough shift?" he asked, trying to break the ice. Emily shrugged. "The usual. 12 hours in the ER, 2 last-minute surgeries." Even in her exhausted state, Michael couldn't help but admire her. In 5 years, she had managed to graduate from medical school, start her residency, and raise a daughter, all on her own. "Daddy!" Olivia shouted, running out of her room and leaping into his arms. Michael's heart still skipped a beat every time she called him that. He lifted her up and pretended he was going to topple over from her weight. "Wow, you've gotten so big. What's your mom been feeding you? Fertilizer?" Olivia giggled, showing the new front tooth growing where there used to be a gap. "Are we going to the park?" "Can we feed the ducks?" she asked with those big eyes Michael found impossible to refuse. "If your mom says it's okay," he replied, glancing at Emily. It was always like this. Every decision, every outing, always subject to Emily's approval. Part of him understood and respected it. It was the arrangement they had made. Another part resented the restrictions, the constant sense of being tested. "Go ahead," Emily said, checking the time. "But be back by 5. She needs a bath before bed." "I can give her a bath," Michael offered. It wasn't the first time. Emily shook her head. "I need to go over some schoolwork with her tonight." There was always a different excuse. In 3 weeks, Michael still hadn't been allowed to handle Olivia's nighttime routine by himself. No tucking her in, no bedtime stories. It was part of the established arrangement that Emily was not yet ready to alter. "All right," he agreed, swallowing his frustration. 5 o'clock sharp. Olivia was already by the door, clutching a bag of stale bread they kept to feed the ducks. "Behave," Emily said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Then, to Michael in a lower tone, "No sweets before dinner this time." He nodded, embarrassed for having broken that rule on his last visit. Olivia knew exactly how to get what she wanted from him, and he was still learning how to say no to that face. In the park, Olivia ran ahead, full of the boundless energy only a 4-year-old can have. Michael followed a few steps behind, always watchful. Since meeting her, he had developed a new kind of fear he'd never known before. A constant worry that something might happen to her. A fall, a stranger, an illness. How had Emily borne that fear alone for 4 years? "Daddy, look, look!" Olivia pointed to a duck that waddled closer than the rest. "That's Mr. Beak." "I named him that because he always comes first." Michael smiled, crouching beside her. He was fascinated by how she saw the world, how she created names and stories for everything around her. "How do you know it's the same duck every time?" he asked, genuinely curious. Olivia looked at him as if he'd asked the silliest question on earth. "Because he has a little black spot on his neck, see?" she pointed. "The others don't have it." Michael looked more closely, and indeed, the duck had a small mark, distinguishing it from the others. "You're very observant." "Mommy says I'm going to be a scientist," she answered, tossing a piece of bread. "Or an astronaut. Or a duck veterinarian." "You can be whatever you want," Michael said, immediately realizing how cliché it sounded. But it was true. Looking at this little girl, he could imagine all the possibilities ahead of her. After feeding the ducks, Olivia wanted to go to the playground. Michael watched her go down the slide, use the swings, and climb the monkey bars. She was fearless, a trait she clearly hadn't inherited from him. Michael had always been calculating, planning every step carefully. "Look what I can do, Daddy." She was hanging upside down on one of the bars, her face red from the blood rushing to her head. "Careful." He ran over, arms extended to catch her if she fell. "Mommy lets me do this all the time," Olivia protested. Michael doubted it, but he didn't want to contradict her. Still, I feel better if you come down now." With an exaggerated sigh only a child can manage, Olivia obeyed. Walking back to the apartment, Olivia insisting on jumping in every puddle she could find, despite Michael's half-hearted protests, he reflected on how these visits, while wonderful, also painfully highlighted everything he had missed. She told him about her favorite teacher, a trip to the beach last summer, how Emily had cried when she pinched her finger in the door. Stories of a life that had gone on entirely without him. Back at the apartment, Emily seemed to have used the time to rest a bit. She still wore her hospital scrubs, but had washed her face and tied up her hair. "Did you have fun?" she asked, helping Olivia out of her muddy shoes. "Yes, Mr. S." Beak came to say hi, and then I showed Daddy how I hang upside down like you showed me and breathe between sentences, Liv. Emily laughed, a sound Michael still found rare and precious. "She was amazing," he commented, looking at Emily. "You've done a wonderful job with her." Emily studied him for a moment, gauging the sincerity of the compliment. "Thank you," she finally replied, her voice softer. "It wasn't easy." Such small openings were rare, moments where her defenses dropped enough for Michael to glimpse the Emily he had once known and loved. "Can I stay for dinner?" he asked, seizing the moment. "I promise not to get in the way." Emily seemed about to refuse, as she always did. But Olivia jumped in. "Please, Mommy, Daddy can help me with my alphabet homework." "You have homework?" Michael asked, surprised. "Already?" "Just coloring letters," Emily explained. "She's learning the alphabet." The idea of being involved in Olivia's schooling filled Michael with an almost childlike excitement. "I can definitely help with that." Emily relented, as she often did when Olivia asked, "Okay, dinner's simple, just pasta with tomato sauce." "My favorite!" Olivia exclaimed, running to get her activity book. During dinner, Michael observed the dynamic between mother and daughter, how they sometimes communicated without words, how Emily knew exactly how much sauce Olivia liked, how she cut her bread into triangles because squares are boring. These small rituals spoke of an intimacy built over years. He felt both part of it and a complete outsider at the same time. After dinner, while Olivia colored letters, R in purple because it was her favorite color that week, Michael helped Emily with the dishes, something she reluctantly allowed. "How's work?" she asked, more out of politeness than genuine interest, he suspected. "Good," Michael replied, drying a plate. "I've had to rearrange my schedule a lot. My assistant hates me a bit now." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Is that a problem?" "No," he answered quickly. "Not at all. It's just different. Before, work was everything. And now?" Michael looked toward the living room, where Olivia was humming as she colored. "Now I realize I was building the wrong life." Emily didn't respond, but he noticed a slight tremble in her hands as she rinsed a glass. "I attend all her school meetings," she said suddenly, "even when I have a shift. I've slept on her bedroom floor when she had a fever. Once I sold my watch, the one my dad gave me when I graduated, to pay for the fridge repair because all her milk was spoiling." Michael felt as though each word was a brick being placed between them. "Emily, No," she cut him off. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because I want you to understand. Being a parent isn't just taking her to the park and buying ice cream. It's choosing her always, above everything." "I know that," he replied, though he was only beginning to grasp how deep that commitment ran. "You think you know." Her tone wasn't accusatory, just tired. "But it's only been 3 weeks, Michael. What happens when it's no longer a novelty? When you have an important meeting on the same day as her ballet recital, when she's sick at 3 in the morning and needs someone." It was a valid concern, and Michael knew it. Until a few weeks ago, he'd never have sacrificed an important meeting for anything or anyone. "I want to learn," he said simply. "I want to be the father she deserves." Emily sighed. "I hope so. Because she's already head over heels for you, and if you leave again, it would break her." Before Michael could respond, Olivia came into the kitchen carrying her activity book. "I'm done. Look, Daddy, I colored the M for Michael in blue because it's the color of the sky and you're tall like the sky." Michael laughed, taking the book. "Wow, that's the most beautiful M I've ever seen." He knelt to her level, and Olivia used the opportunity to throw her arms around his neck in a tight hug. "I love you, Daddy," she said, with the simplicity and honesty only a child can have. Michael felt his throat close up. It was the first time she had said that. He looked at Emily over Olivia's head and saw the fear in her eyes. The fear that he wasn't ready for the weight of those words. "I love you too, Olivia," he replied, his voice husky. And it was true. In just 3 weeks, this little girl had conquered every inch of his heart. Later, while Olivia took a bath with Emily's help, Michael waited in the living room, looking at the photos on the wall. There was one in particular that always caught his eye, Emily in the hospital, exhausted yet radiant, holding a tiny bundle that was newborn Olivia. He tried to imagine what it would have been like to be there, to hold his daughter for the first time, see her face and count her fingers, precious moments he would never get back. The guilt consumed him, not just for what he'd missed, but for the burden Emily had carried alone. Each photo told a story in which he should have played a part. Emily emerged from the bathroom carrying Olivia, wrapped in a towel with a duck hood. "Time to get in pajamas and brush your teeth," she said, taking the girl to her room. Michael stayed behind, respecting their established nightly routine. Minutes later, Olivia ran back out, already in pajamas. "Will you read me a bedtime story tonight?" she asked hopefully. Michael glanced at Emily, silently asking permission. "One short story," Emily conceded. "It's already getting late." The ritual of putting Olivia to bed fascinated Michael. The way Emily adjusted the blankets exactly as Olivia liked, the cup of water on the bedside table, the monster check under the bed, a necessity on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but never on Mondays or Wednesdays. According to some child logic Michael was still trying to understand. He read The Princess and the Frog while Olivia fought sleep, her heavy eyes blinking open and shut in a losing battle. "Are you coming tomorrow?" she asked sleepily when he finished the book. "I'm not sure, Princess. I have some meetings." "Please," she yawned. "Miss Karen wants to meet you." "Who's Miss Karen?" Michael asked, confused. "My teacher," Olivia murmured, already half asleep. "I told her my daddy came back and she said she wants to meet you." Michael felt a lump in his throat. Olivia had talked about him at school, introducing him as her dad who had come back, not as a stranger who'd just appeared in her life. "I'll see what I can do," he promised, kissing her forehead. When he left her room, Emily was waiting in the living room, arms folded. "She mentioned her teacher?" Emily asked. Michael nodded. "She said Miss Karen wants to meet me." Emily sighed. "She won't stop talking about you at school. She draws you in all her activities." She hesitated. "Her teacher called me last week, concerned about the situation." "What situation?" "The situation where my daughter suddenly has a father after 4 years," Emily replied, tension evident in her voice. "They want to make sure she's coping well." Michael felt a wave of shame. He hadn't considered how this sudden change might affect Olivia at school, how the adults around her might be worried. "I can go tomorrow," he offered. "Meet the teacher, explain." To his surprise, Emily nodded. "I was actually going to suggest that we can pick her up together. I leave the hospital early tomorrow." It was a small step, but a significant one. The first time Emily suggested they do something together as, not exactly a family, but close to it. "Thank you," Michael said, genuinely grateful. As he was about to leave, he paused at the door. "Emily?" "Yes?" "I know I can't make up 4 years in 3 weeks. I know you don't trust me yet, and you have every right not to. But I want you to know I'm fully committed to her, to both of you." Emily didn't reply immediately. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "It's hard to believe that after years of you showing other things were more important. I know, but I hope one day you'll see I've changed." Olivia changed everything. Emily only nodded, neither confirming nor denying the possibility. It was the most he could hope for right now. Walking down the steps of the building, Michael reflected on how his life had turned upside down in just a few weeks. Before Leo, his penthouse, his cars, his professional achievements had seemed like the pinnacle of success. Now it all felt empty compared to an afternoon in the park with his daughter, compared to having Emily's trust again. For the first time, he fully realized what he had lost by choosing his career over everything. and he promised himself that somehow, no matter what it took, he wouldn't make that same mistake again. A light morning breeze ruffled Olivia's hair as she walked hand in hand with Michael. It had been 2 months since that night in the park, and now taking her to school 3 times a week had become part of his routine. "So then Miss Karen said my family drawing was the most colorful in class," Olivia chattered away, swinging her lunchbox in her free hand. "I drew Mommy in a white coat, you with a blue tie, and me in the middle." Michael smiled, picturing the drawing. "You're an incredible artist." "So incredible I'm going to be famous one day," she declared, with the unwavering confidence only a child can have. At the school entrance, other children arrived with their parents. Michael noticed some of them glancing his way. By now it wasn't exactly news to see him there, but it still drew curiosity. He was the dad who had shown up in Olivia's life. "Daddy, you remember there's a meeting after class today, right?" Olivia asked, adjusting her small backpack already too full with the things Emily always packed. "Of course I remember," Michael said. "I'll be here at 3. Olivia smiled and threw her arms around his waist. "Love you, Daddy." Every time she called him that without hesitation, Michael felt his heart swell. "Love you too, Princess." He watched her run inside, joining a group of friends. He was so absorbed in the scene that he didn't notice Emily approaching. "I thought you'd be at work by now," she commented, startling him. "I changed some meetings," Michael replied, turning to face her. "I didn't want to miss today's meeting." Emily wore her hospital scrubs under a coat, clearly on her way to a shift. Her face showed the fatigue of someone who'd slept little. "Thank you for doing this," she said, and Michael sensed genuine appreciation in her tone. "It would have been hard for me to leave the hospital." "No problem. It's the least I can do." They walked together to the parking lot in uncomfortable silence. After 2 months, Michael still felt the barrier Emily kept between them. It wasn't hostility anymore, but a constant caution, as if she expected him to vanish at any moment. "Need a ride to the hospital?" he offered. Emily shook her head. "I have my car." Michael nodded, having expected the refusal. "Emily, I was thinking, maybe I could take Olivia for the weekend." Her body tensed immediately. "At your place?" "Yes. I've prepared a room for her. I bought some toys and book." "Michael," Emily interrupted, her voice firm. "We already discussed this. I'm not ready for her to spend the night away from me." Frustration rose inside him. "It's been 2 months, Emily. I've been punctual for every visit and following all your rules. When are you going to start trusting me?" "It's not about time," she responded, crossing her arms defensively. "It's about stability." "I'm being stable," Michael insisted. "I've rearranged my entire life for her, for both of you." Emily glanced at her watch, clearly uncomfortable. "I have to go. We'll talk about it after the meeting." Before Michael could press further, she was already walking away. He sighed, returning to his car. Part of him understood Emily's fears. Another part wondered if she'd ever see him as anything but the man who abandoned her years ago. Thursday Samdig that afternoon found Michael sitting in a chair far too small for him in Olivia's classroom. Nearby, other parents chatted while they waited for the teacher. Olivia was in the play area with the other children. "You must be Olivia's dad," a woman sitting nearby remarked. "She talks about you a lot." Michael smiled, a mix of pride and guilt welling up. "Yes, I am. My daughter, Zoe, is her best friend," the woman went on. "I'm Amanda, by the way." "Michael Carter," he introduced himself, shaking her hand. "Olivia's been really happy since you came back," Amanda said casually, not realizing the weight behind her words. "Before, she used to get sad when the other kids talked about their dads." Michael felt his stomach drop. I didn't know that." "Emily did an amazing job with her," Amanda continued. "I don't know how she manages between her medical residency and being a single mom. My husband and I can barely cope with the 2 of us together." Before Michael could respond, the teacher entered, sparing him from having to explain his 4-year absence. The meeting was about the children's progress and upcoming semester projects. Michael took meticulous notes, determined to show Emily he was taking his responsibilities seriously. When Miss Karen specifically mentioned Olivia's emotional development in recent weeks, she looked directly at Michael with a smile of approval. "She's much more confident," the teacher commented when parents approached for one-on-one chats. "She talks about you constantly, Mr. Carter." "I hope it's all good things," Michael joked. "Only the best," she assured him. For a child, having both parents involved makes all the difference, even if they're not together. Michael nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I'm trying to make up for lost time." "What matters is that you're here now," the teacher replied kindly. Leaving the school with Olivia skipping beside him, Michael felt both inspired and overwhelmed by the responsibility. "Can we get ice cream?" Olivia asked, looking at him with those eyes he still hadn't learned to resist. "Your mum wouldn't like that before dinner," he answered, surprising even himself with his firmness. Olivia pouted, but didn't insist. "Then can we stop at the bookstore? I want to show you the dinosaur book I told you about." "That we can do," Michael agreed, relieved he'd resisted her first request. At the bookstore, while Olivia explored the children's section, Michael received a message from Emily saying she would be late due to an emergency at the hospital. Without hesitation, he replied he'd take care of Olivia until she got back. That night, in Emily's apartment, Michael made mac and cheese, the only dish he could manage without disaster, helped Olivia with her homework, and supervised her bath, a recent privilege Emily had finally allowed. After blow-drying Olivia's hair and helping her into pajamas, he felt oddly at peace. It was as if he were finally where he was supposed to be. "Daddy," Olivia said as he braided her hair the way Emily had taught him, "you're not going away again, right?" The question caught him off guard. "No, Princess. I'm not leaving." "Promise." She turned to face him, her big, serious eyes. "Because sometimes Mommy gets sad and says people can go away even if they don't want to." Michael felt his heart clench. So that was Emily's fear. Not just that he might choose to leave, but that something could happen and he'd be forced to leave them again. "I promise," he said as firmly as he could. "I'll always be here for you, no matter what." When Emily finally arrived, she found Michael asleep on the couch, a storybook resting on his chest. She checked on Olivia, peacefully sleeping in her room, and returned to the living room. For a moment, she just watched the man she had once loved, the same man who had broken her heart, now so naturally integrated into her life. Part of her wanted to believe in the change, in his permanence. Another part still waited for everything to collapse again. Gently, she touched his shoulder. "Michael, wake up." He opened his eyes, momentarily disoriented. "Emily, sorry, I must have dozed off." "It's okay," she replied, sitting in the armchair across from him. "Thank you for taking care of her." Michael sat up, running a hand through his messy hair. "No need to thank me. She's my daughter too." Emily nodded, and for a brief moment, Michael saw her guard lower slightly. "You're doing well with her," she admitted. "Better than I expected." It was the closest thing to a compliment she had offered in the last 2 months. "Thank you," he replied simply. "That means a lot, coming from you." A comfortable silence settled between them, different from the usual tension. Perhaps, Michael thought, with time and patience, that wall might finally come down. Michael parked his car outside the blue building, but didn't get out immediately. On the passenger seat was a brown envelope he eyed with a mixture of determination and anxiety. After 3 months of spending time with Olivia and witnessing the conditions in which she and Emily lived, he had made a decision he believed was the right thing to do. The apartment was too small. Olivia didn't have adequate space to play. Emily worked exhausting hours to pay the bills. Meanwhile, he lived in a penthouse with 3 unused bedrooms and more money than he could spend in years. It wasn't fair, and Michael could finally do something about it. With the envelope in hand, he climbed the stairs. It was Sunday afternoon, the only day Emily usually didn't work. Olivia was at a friend's birthday party, making it the perfect time for the conversation he planned to have. Emily answered the door with a pen in hand and reading glasses on, probably studying for a residency exam. "Michael, I thought you were coming later to pick up Olivia from the party." "I needed to talk to you first," he said, trying to control his nerves. May I come in? She stepped aside, allowing him in. Michael noticed the piles of medical books scattered on the table, the empty coffee cups, the exhaustion clear in Emily's eyes. What happened? She asked, crossing her arms, a defensive gesture he knew well. Emily, I've been thinking. He took a deep breath. Olivia is my daughter too, and I want to contribute financially to her well-being. It's not fair that you carry all the burden alone. Michael held out the envelope. It's a check, to start. I also opened a savings account for her college. Emily made no move to take the envelope. Her face, once tired, now displayed an expression Michael couldn't quite read. What exactly is this? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. Help, Michael replied, confused by her reaction. You work so hard, and I have more than I need. I thought you could move to a bigger apartment, maybe a better neighborhood, closer to good schools. Emily finally grabbed the envelope, only to toss it onto the coffee table with a sharp motion. So that's it. After 3 months playing daddy, you decided you can solve everything with money. Her tone took Michael by surprise. That's not it. I just want to help. Help? Emily let out a bitter laugh. Michael, for 4 years, I raised our daughter alone. I worked 2 jobs while studying medicine. I spent sleepless nights when she was sick. I sacrificed everything, she pointed to the envelope. And you think you can make up for all that with a check? I'm not trying to make up for the past, Michael argued, beginning to realize his approach had been completely wrong. I just want Olivia to have the opportunities she deserves. The opportunities she deserves? Emily's voice rose. What she deserves is a father who's present because he wants to be, not because he feels guilty or wants to buy his way back into her life. Michael felt his face grow hot. I'm not trying to buy my way back. I'm here, aren't I? Every day, following your rules, trying to be the dad she needs. Isn't that enough for you? Emily demanded, tears shining in her eyes. Having a genuine relationship with her isn't enough. You have to throw money at the problem to feel better. That's not it, Michael protested, but a voice in his head began questioning his motives. Was he unconsciously trying to ease his guilt? You know what Olivia asked me for her birthday, Emily continued. Not an expensive toy or new clothes. She asked for you to be there, that was all she wanted. Her words hit Michael like a punch. Emily seemed determined to give him no mercy. Our life might not be luxurious, but Olivia has never lacked anything, Emily said. Never. I'm proud of what we have, just the 2 of us. I know, Michael said in a low voice. You did an amazing job with her. I never meant to suggest otherwise. But you did, Emily retorted, by assuming we need your money, that somehow we're living a lesser life because we don't have what you have. Michael ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Everything was going wrong. Emily, please, that wasn't what I meant. I just thought I could help in a tangible way. You want to help in a tangible way? She crossed her arms again. Be present. Be reliable. Don't miss her events. Don't promise things you can't keep. That's what a father does. Michael nodded slowly, starting to grasp the magnitude of his mistake. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll take it back. He reached for the envelope, but Emily beat him to it. She took the check out and tore it into pieces. I don't want your money, Michael. I never did. Her voice trembled slightly. Don't you get it? When you left, I lost the person I loved, not a source of income. And when you showed up at our door 3 months ago, Olivia gained a father, not a sponsor. The silence that followed was heavy with years of unresolved hurt and mismatched expectations. I think you should go, Emily said at last. I can pick up Olivia from the party myself. Emily, please, Michael, I need to think. This, she gestured between them, is getting too confusing. He wanted to argue, to explain his intentions again, but the determined look in Emily's eyes told him any argument would be futile. All right, he relented, but we'll talk afterward. Right? About Olivia? Emily didn't answer, just opened the door in a clear signal for him to leave. The next day, Michael tried calling Emily several times to no avail. His texts got short, practical replies, Olivia is fine, or we're busy today. When he finally managed to reach her on the phone, the conversation was brief and painful. "I think we need a break," Emily said. "Everything's moving too fast." "What does that even mean?" Michael asked, his stomach dropping. "It means we're not keeping the same routine for now. Olivia is confused, and I need to make sure this is best for her." "Emily, please," he pleaded. "That was a stupid mistake. Don't make Olivia pay for it." "I'm not making anyone pay for anything," Emily answered firmly. "I'm protecting my daughter." The emphasis on "my" did not go unnoticed. "Our daughter," Michael corrected gently. The silence on the other end was her only response. In the days that followed, Michael felt the bitter taste of exclusion. The rides to take Olivia to school were reduced to once a week. The afternoons at the park were cancelled due to last-minute commitments Emily claimed to have. When he did see Olivia, the visits were shorter and always closely supervised by Emily, as in the early days. It was as though all the progress of the last 3 months had vanished. But the worst of all were Olivia's questions. "Why don't you come pick me up at school anymore, Daddy?" she asked during one of their rare visits. I've been busy with work, Princess," he lied, hating himself for it. "You don't like me anymore." The innocent question broke his heart. "Of course I do," he said, hugging her tight. You're the most important person in the world to me." Olivia seemed to ponder that deeply. "Then why does Mommy get sad when I talk about you?" Michael didn't know how to respond. How to explain adult relationship complexities to a 4-year-old, the weight of past mistakes, the fear of abandonment that Emily clearly still carried. 2 weeks after the argument about money, Michael parked outside Olivia's school. It wasn't his day to pick her up, but he needed to see Emily, to fix things somehow. He waited in the lot until he saw them leaving the building. Olivia noticed him first, her face lighting up instantly. "Daddy!" she shouted, running toward him before Emily could stop her. Michael scooped her into his arms, savoring her tight hug. "Hi, Princess." Emily approached slowly, her face a studied mask of neutrality. "Michael, I didn't expect to see you today. Can we talk?" he asked. "Please." She hesitated, then sighed. "Olivia, why don't you go play at the little playground for 5 minutes while we talk? Stay where we can see you." The little girl nodded and ran to the small playground near the school exit. "What do you want?" Emily asked as soon as Olivia was out of earshot. "I want to apologize again," Michael said bluntly. "And I want to know what I can do to fix this." Emily looked at Olivia on the swing, then back at Michael. "You really don't get it, do you?" she asked, more tired than angry. "Then explain it to me," he pleaded. "Because I'm trying, Emily. I'm really trying to be the father Olivia deserves." Emily crossed her arms, her signature defensive posture. "When you pulled out that check, you know what I saw. I saw the same Michael from 5 years ago, who believed problems could be solved with money and power. The Michael who left me because his career was more important than anything." Michael wanted to protest, to say he'd changed, but Emily continued. "And the worst part is that for a few weeks I started believing you really had changed. That maybe, just maybe, we could trust you." Hearing that revelation shocked Michael. Emily had started to trust him before this incident. "I have changed," he insisted. "I made a mistake, yes, a stupid mistake, but I'm not the same person." "How can I be sure?" Emily asked, her voice suddenly vulnerable. "How can I risk Olivia's heart on this? She's already so attached to you." And then Michael understood. It wasn't just anger driving Emily, it was fear. Fear he might hurt Olivia the way he had hurt Emily in the past. "I can't promise I'll never make mistakes," he said calmly, "but I can promise I'll never abandon her again. Never." Emily studied him for a long moment. "Words are easy, Michael. Then let me prove it with actions," he begged. "Please don't shut me out, that will only hurt her." Emily looked again at Olivia, who waved enthusiastically from atop the slide. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "1 visit a week. Supervised. We'll start over slowly." It wasn't what Michael had hoped, practically back to square one, but it was better than nothing. "Thank you," he said sincerely. As he said goodbye to Olivia that day, promising to see her over the weekend, Michael knew he had a long road ahead. He had made a fundamental mistake by trying to use money to solve emotional issues. the very behavior that had driven Emily away years ago. Driving home, he reflected on how he would have to change his approach completely. It wouldn't be with grand gestures or quick fixes that he'd regain Emily's trust. It would be with consistency, patience, and humility. For the first time, Michael understood that rebuilding a family wasn't like closing a business deal or buying a company. There were no shortcuts, no monetary values involved. It was a slow process, made of small moments, of commitments upheld, of promises kept day by day. And if that meant starting all over again, stepping back 10 paces just to move forward one again, he would do it, for Olivia. And maybe, one day, for Emily too. It had been almost a month since Michael last saw Olivia. A month of unanswered calls, terse text messages, and cancelled visits. After the money incident, Emily had built an even higher wall between them, and none of Michael's arguments seemed to penetrate her resolve to protect Olivia. By the third week without news, he'd reached his limit. The photos of Olivia on his phone, her drawing on his fridge, the little bedroom he'd prepared for her in his penthouse, they all reminded him of what he was missing. One Wednesday morning, Michael made an impulsive decision. Instead of going to the office, he drove to Olivia's school. He knew he was breaking Emily's rules, but desperation took over. He needed to see his daughter, even from a distance. He parked across the street, far enough not to be immediately noticed, but close enough to see the school entrance. Soon, the children would arrive for class. He just wanted a glimpse, some reassurance that Olivia was okay. The minutes dragged. Parents and kids began filling the sidewalk in front of the school with chatter and colorful backpacks. And then, finally, he saw her. Olivia got out of Emily's car, her hair in 2 imperfect braids. Emily had never been great with hairstyles. She wore a purple dress and carried her unicorn backpack, chatting excitedly with her mum. Michael's heart tightened. She looked fine, at least. She didn't seem to be suffering from his absence as he was from hers. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe Emily was right to keep him away. He was about to start the engine and leave when the unthinkable happened. Olivia glanced in his direction, as if a sixth sense had alerted her. Her eyes widened in recognition, and before Emily could react, she shouted, "Daddy! Daddy!" Then she was running, ignoring Emily's calls, crossing the sidewalk with the speed only an excited child can muster. "Daddy, I knew you'd come back." Michael stepped out of the car, unable to resist. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. He knelt, arms open, ready to receive his daughter. But before Olivia could reach him, Emily appeared, grabbing her arm firmly but without hurting her. "Olivia, no!" Emily said, pulling her back. "Go back to school now." "But it's Daddy!" Olivia protested, tears forming in her eyes. "He came back." "You said he'd come back." Emily ignored her daughter's protests and looked directly at Michael. Her gaze was fierce, but he could see something else too: hurt, disappointment, maybe even pity. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low and controlled, clearly trying not to make a scene in front of the school. "I just wanted to see her," Michael said, feeling both justified and guilty. "It's been almost a month, Emily." She shook her head. "You can't do this. You can't just show up whenever you feel like it." "Daddy, why don't you come see me anymore?" Olivia interrupted, her little face confused. "Are you mad at me?" The question tore Michael apart. "No, princess. I could never be mad at you. It's just that your mom and I—" "Michael," Emily cut him off. "Don't do this." She turned to Olivia. "Sweetheart, go inside now. Miss Karen is waiting. I promise we'll talk about this later." "But now, Olivia." The firmness in Emily's voice left no room for argument. Olivia cast Michael one last, tearful look before reluctantly obeying. She glanced back several times as she walked away. Once Olivia was out of earshot, Emily turned on Michael, furious. "How dare you? Coming to her school like this, unannounced. Do you have any idea what this does to her?" "What it does to her?" Michael shot back, anger flaring. "What do you think you're doing by keeping me away? She thinks I abandoned her, Emily. That I don't love her anymore. Don't you dare blame me," Emily hissed. "You were the one who ruined everything with that arrogant stunt, thinking you could fix our problems with money. like we were one of your business ventures. I made a mistake, Michael conceded, a stupid mistake. But I didn't deserve to be completely cut out of her life. Emily glanced around, noticing a few parents looking their way. She stepped closer to Michael, lowering her voice. I can't let you pop in and out of her life as you please, Michael. She needs stability, and I don't know if you can give her that. Her words felt like a punch to Michael's gut. I would never leave her voluntarily. Never. Words, Emily repeated. Tired. You've always been good with words. But when things get tough, when they don't go your way, what happens then? Michael wanted to protest, say it wasn't fair, that he had changed. But looking at Emily's exhausted face, into eyes that had seen their child born and grow up alone, he realized words really wouldn't suffice. What do I need to do? He finally asked. What do I have to do to prove I'm here to stay? Emily studied him for a moment. I don't know if there's anything you can do, she answered honestly. Maybe it's too late. I don't believe that, Michael said firmly. I won't give up on her or on you. A flash of surprise crossed Emily's eyes, but she quickly masked it. I have to go. I'm already late for work. She turned to leave, but stopped after a few steps. Michael? Yes. Don't come back here. Not like this. If you want to see Olivia, it has to be on my terms. And with that, she walked away, leaving Michael alone with the painful realization that he had complicated things once again, but also with a renewed determination. If words weren't enough, he would show with actions just how much Olivia, and yes, Emily too, meant to him. The following week, Michael didn't try calling Emily. He didn't show up at the school unannounced. He didn't send expensive gifts or attempt to buy his way back into their lives. Instead, he started doing something different. On a Saturday morning, he signed up as a volunteer for the charity fair Olivia's school would hold the next weekend. He didn't mention he was a parent. He didn't ask to be placed in any special role. He simply offered his time and skills. On the day of the fair, he arrived early, helped set up booths, carried heavy boxes, and did everything he was asked without complaint. From a distance, he saw Emily and Olivia arrive. He saw the moment Olivia spotted him, how her eyes lit up, and how she tugged on Emily's sleeve, pointing in his direction. Emily looked surprised, then suspicious. But Michael only waved discreetly and continued working, not trying to approach them. He was there to help, not to force a meeting. Later, while manning the refreshment stand, Olivia appeared alone. Hi, Daddy, she said timidly, as if afraid he might vanish any second. Hi, Princess, he replied, heart pounding. Are you having fun at the fair? She nodded, glancing around nervously. Mommy's buying popcorn. She doesn't know I came to see you. Michael felt a knot in his throat. She might be upset if she finds you here, Olivia shrugged. Maybe, but I missed you. She looked at him with those big brown eyes. Why don't you visit us anymore? It's complicated, Olivia, he said honestly. Sometimes grown-ups disagree on things, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I do. More than anything. Then why don't you tell Mommy? Olivia asked. With a child's simple logic, Michael offered a sad smile. I have, but sometimes saying it isn't enough. I have to show it. How? By being patient, by being there when it matters, by respecting your mom's decisions, he hesitated, then added, like now. I think you'd better go back to her before she gets worried. Olivia frowned but nodded. You're not going away again. No, Michael promised. I'm not going anywhere. As Olivia ran back to Emily, Michael noticed Emily observing from a distance. Their eyes met briefly, and for a moment he thought he saw a slight nod of acknowledgement in hers. In the following weeks, Michael continued his new approach. When he learned Olivia's class would have a music recital, he showed up and sat quietly at the back of the auditorium. He didn't try to speak to Emily or Olivia, just watched proudly as his daughter sang her part and applauding with the other parents. When he heard through other parents that there would be a clean-up day at the park where Olivia played, he arrived with gloves and trash bags, working silently alongside neighbors and families. Each time, he kept his distance from Emily and Olivia, not pushing for interaction, merely making sure his presence was noticed. He was building something new, showing through actions, not words, that he was committed not just to Olivia but to the community she was part of. A month after the scene at the school, Michael was helping paint the new children's library in the neighborhood when he sensed someone approaching. "I didn't know you painted," Emily said, surprising him. Michael gave a slight smile, continuing his work. "There are many things you don't know about me." Emily watched in silence for a few minutes as he finished painting a section of the wall. She wore her hospital scrubs under a coat, probably coming straight from a shift. "I've seen you," she finally said, "at the school recital, at the park." "At the fair?" Michael nodded but said nothing. "Why?" Emily asked. "Why didn't you call? Why didn't you insist? Why didn't you try to convince me to let you see Olivia?" He put the paintbrush down and turned to face her. "Because you were right," he admitted. "Words are easy, and you don't trust me. Not yet. So I thought maybe actions would be more convincing." Emily crossed her arms, but not in the defensive way he was used to. It seemed more like she was protecting herself from something inside her. "Olivia asks about you," she said quietly. "Every night. She wants to know when you'll come over for dinner again." Michael felt a pang of pain and hope at the same time. "What do you tell her?" "The truth, that things are complicated between us." "They are," Michael agreed, "but they don't have to be complicated for her." Emily gazed out the window at a few children playing under the supervision of volunteers, Olivia among them, Michael realized. "You really did change, didn't you?" she asked, more to herself than to him. "I'm trying," he answered honestly. "I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. But I'll never be that man again who puts work, money, or anything else above Olivia." He hesitated, then added, "Or you." Emily's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "Michael, I'm not asking for anything," he quickly clarified. "I just want you to know I understand now. I understand what you both deserve, and I'm willing to prove it every day for as long as it takes." Emily took a deep breath, as if making a difficult decision. "Olivia has a ballet recital tomorrow," she said, "at her dance school, 5 o'clock. Michael nodded, understanding the implied invitation. "I'll be there. And afterward," Emily went on hesitantly, "maybe you could have dinner with us. Just dinner," she added quickly, "for Olivia." Michael's heart raced, but he kept his composure. "I'd love to. Thank you." Emily nodded and turned to go, but paused at the door. "Michael?" "Yes." "You still have a lot to prove," she said, her tone softened by the hint of a smile. "But it's a start." As he watched her walk away to join Olivia in the playground, Michael felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Genuine hope. Not the desperate hope of the past months, but something more solid, built on actions and true commitment. It had been a long, winding road to get there. Mistakes had been made, years lost. But watching Olivia play and Emily watch her with love, Michael knew every step of this journey would be worth it. The next morning, he bought flowers, not for Emily but for Olivia for her recital. Simple daisies, her favorites. Nothing extravagant, nothing that might be seen as trying to buy affection. Just a symbol that this time, he would be there. Not just on that day, but on all the important days to come. A present father, learning from his mistakes, putting his family first. It was all he had to offer, and for the first time, he believed it might be enough. The invitation caught Michael by surprise one Thursday night. He was going over some documents in his office when his phone rang, showing Emily's name. Over the past 2 months, since she'd begun letting him slowly back into Olivia's life, their conversations had been brief and practical, always about schedules, school obligations, or Olivia's specific needs. "Emily?" he answered, trying to hide the surprise in his voice. "Hey, Michael," she paused. "I'm calling because, well, Olivia has a long weekend from school. Friday's a holiday." "Yes, I know." Michael had already marked all of Olivia's important school dates on his calendar. "I was thinking," Emily continued, her voice hesitant, "maybe you'd like to spend the long weekend with her, here at the apartment." Michael nearly dropped his phone. "A whole weekend?" "That's what I'm suggesting," Emily replied, sounding just as surprised at her own offer. "But I would stay here too," she added quickly. "It's not that I don't trust you, it's just..." "It's okay," Michael interrupted gently. "I completely understand." After years of raising Olivia alone, it was natural for Emily to be wary about leaving her entirely in someone else's care, even if it was her father. Michael understood that now, after months learning what fatherhood really meant. "So," Emily broke the silence, "does that interest you?" "Absolutely," Michael replied without hesitation. "That'd be incredible. Thank you for suggesting it, Emily." Another moment of silence before she answered, "Olivia will be really happy. She's been talking about this for weeks." "I'm happy too," Michael said sincerely. "Very." When he hung up, Michael realized he was smiling in a way he hadn't in years. It was a small step, but it meant everything. Emily was finally lowering her guard a bit. On Friday, Michael arrived early at Emily's apartment, carrying only a small overnight bag. He'd decided to sleep on the living room couch. He didn't want to intrude on Emily's personal space more than necessary. On the way, he'd stopped for groceries to make pancakes, knowing they were Olivia's breakfast favorite. Emily opened the door wearing casual clothes, jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair up in a messy ponytail. It was rare to see her like this, without her hospital scrubs or the practical clothes she wore for work. "Morning," she greeted, stepping aside to let him in. "Olivia's still asleep. She was so excited last night she couldn't fall asleep." "I hope that's not a problem," Michael said, raising the grocery bag. "I brought stuff for breakfast." Emily glanced at the bag and gave a small smile. "Pancakes? How'd you guess?" "You always made the best pancakes," she commented, taking the bag and heading to the kitchen. "At least some things don't change." It was a casual, almost nostalgic remark that caught Michael off guard. It was the closest Emily had come to acknowledging their past, the time before the hurts, when they were just a young couple in love, with simple dreams and Sunday pancakes. The morning went peacefully. When Olivia finally woke up and found out her dad was there, her squeal of joy echoed through the small apartment. She clung to his arms and wouldn't let go, excitedly describing all the plans she had for the weekend. Emily watched from a distance, a cup of coffee in her hands, an unreadable expression on her face. Michael realized she was battling internally, wanting to give Olivia space to bond with him, but still fearful of stepping too far back. "How about pancakes for breakfast?" Michael suggested, setting Olivia on the floor. "Yes," she cried, racing to the kitchen. "Can I help? Can I?" "Sure thing, sous chef," Michael answered, making her laugh at the unfamiliar word. In the kitchen, with Olivia on a stool beside him, Michael began preparing the batter. Even such simple domestic moments were new to him, teaching Olivia how to crack an egg, with messy results, letting her stir the batter with a spoon too big for her hands, cleaning up the flour that inevitably covered the countertop. Emily stood by the doorway, initially tense, but gradually she relaxed, seeing how natural Michael's interactions with their daughter were. "Mommy, look, I'm making pancakes," Olivia announced proudly, showing her flour-covered hands. "I see, honey," Emily replied, a genuine smile on her face. "You and your dad are making quite a mess." "The best food always comes from the messiest kitchens," Michael quipped, winking at Olivia, who nodded solemnly as though he'd shared a great culinary secret. The rest of the day flowed with surprising ease. A trip to the park, where Michael pushed Olivia on the swings until his arms ached. A visit to the local library, where Olivia insisted they both read to her, alternating pages, and a painting session at the kitchen table, ending with more paint on their clothes than on the paper. For Michael, each moment was a revelation. It wasn't the grand events that made parenthood special, he realized, but these little day-to-day moments. The way Olivia automatically grabbed his hand when they crossed the street. How she looked for his approval after every little accomplishment. How she trusted him completely, without doubt. That evening, after Olivia finally fell asleep following 3 stories and many protests that she wasn't tired, Michael found Emily on the apartment's small balcony, gazing at the city lights. "Busy day," he remarked, joining her. "Very," she agreed, "but a good one." She loved it. "So did I," Michael admitted. "Thank you for this, Emily. For letting me be part of her life like this." Emily didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, almost vulnerable. "You know what's hardest about all this? Seeing how good you are with her, how natural it seems, like you've always been here." She paused. "Makes me wonder how it would have been if—" She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Michael could fill in the blanks. If he hadn't chosen his career over her, if he'd answered her calls 5 years ago, if he'd been there from the start. "I'm sorry," he said simply. There were no justifications that could change the past. "It's not just Olivia I'm afraid for," Emily continued, still looking at the lights instead of him. "It's me, too. Trusting you again, even just as her father, it's scary." Her honesty disarmed Michael completely. "I understand," he replied. "I don't expect you to trust me right away. I know I have to prove, day after day, that I'm here to stay, that I won't disappear when things get tough." Emily finally turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the balcony's soft light. "You were everything to me, Michael," she said, her voice so quiet he could barely hear. "We had so many plans, a home, kids, a life together. Then suddenly your career mattered more than anything, more than us." The pain in her voice was tangible, reminding Michael just how deeply he had hurt her. He hadn't just thrown away a relationship, but their shared future, the dreams they'd had. "I was an idiot," he admitted. "I thought I was building a better life for us, but I was really just chasing my own ego. Success, money, recognition. I thought that was what mattered. And now?" "Now?" Michael glanced inside the apartment, toward the room where Olivia slept. "Now I know none of it is worth it without the people we love, without you, without Olivia." The silence between them was laden with emotions unspoken, with years of hurt, and perhaps new possibilities. "Mommy? Daddy?" Olivia's sleepy voice came from the balcony door, startling them both. She stood there rubbing her eyes, her worn plush bunny dragging on the floor. "What is it, honey?" Emily asked, maternal instincts kicking in instantly. "Did you have a bad dream?" Olivia shook her head. "I woke up and you weren't there. I thought—" She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. The fear of being left alone was clear in her big eyes. "We're here," Michael assured her, kneeling down to her level. "We were just talking." Olivia nodded, looking relieved. Then, as if recalling something important, she said, "Wait here, I have to show you something." Before either adult could respond, she was gone, back into the apartment. Emily and Michael exchanged puzzled looks. Minutes later, Olivia returned carrying something that looked like an old magazine. As she got closer, Michael recognized it, an old business publication from years back featuring him on the cover. The 30 Under 30 article that had been a huge milestone early in his career. "Look, Daddy," Olivia said, showing him the magazine. "Mommy always showed me this. I already knew who my dad was." Michael looked at Emily, surprised. She had kept that magazine all these years. She had shown it to Olivia, talked about him even after all he'd done. Emily lowered her gaze, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I never wanted her to grow up not knowing who you were," she admitted softly. "Despite everything, you were still her father." The revelation hit Michael deeply. Even when he was absent, even when he'd hurt Emily so badly, she had made an effort to keep his memory alive for Olivia. She had never tried to erase him or paint him as the villain. "You told me stories," Olivia continued, looking back and forth between them. "About how Daddy was smart and funny, how he made the best pancakes, how one day he was going to come back." That last line made Michael glance at Emily in astonishment. "I didn't say exactly that," Emily clarified hurriedly. "I said maybe, one day, the two of you would meet." But Olivia, in her childlike interpretation, had taken it her own way, that her dad would come back to them someday. And in a strange turn of events, that had actually happened, although not in any way they could have foreseen. "Now that you're back, are you going to stay?" Olivia asked, looking directly at Michael with that disarming, childlike frankness. The question caught Michael off guard. Not for the first time, he realized just how much his presence, or absence, affected Olivia. It wasn't just about Emily's trust, but about their daughters. The child who, despite never meeting him before that day in the park, loved him unconditionally because her mother had kept his memory alive. "Yes, Olivia," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm staying. I'm never leaving again." He looked at Emily as he said it, wanting her to understand the promise was for both of them, that this time he would put his family above everything, above work, money, personal ambition. Emily didn't speak, but something in her expression shifted, a tiny crack in the wall around her heart. "Can I sleep in your bed tonight?" Olivia asked innocently, providing a brief, awkward moment as the adults recalled that, in her mind, they were still a traditional family. "You can sleep in my bed," Emily answered gently, "and your dad will be on the couch, remember?" "But—" Olivia started to protest, confused. "It's okay, Princess," Michael interjected quietly. "What matters is that we're all here, right? And tomorrow, when you wake up, we'll make more pancakes together." That seemed to satisfy her. With another yawn, she held out her arms to be carried. To Michael's surprise, Emily gestured for him to pick her up. "You can put her to bed," she offered. "I think she'd like that." It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Emily trusting him with one of the most intimate, precious tasks of parenthood, tucking their daughter in. Holding Olivia in his arms, Michael carried her to the bedroom. He gently set her down, adjusted the blankets, and kissed her forehead. "Good night, Daddy," she murmured, already half asleep. "Good night, my love," he replied, a wave of emotion so intense it nearly floored him. When he returned to the living room, he found Emily putting the old magazine away in a box. She seemed slightly embarrassed at being caught. "You kept that all this time," Michael observed. Not really a question, more an admiring statement. Emily shrugged, trying to appear casual. "I thought one day she might want to know who her father was." "Thank you," Michael said sincerely, "for not erasing me from her life, for giving her a positive image of me, even when I didn't deserve it." Emily finally met his gaze, and for the first time in a long time, there was no anger or distrust, just a soft acceptance. "I made mistakes too, Michael," she admitted. "Maybe I should have tried harder to tell you about the pregnancy. Maybe—" "No," he interrupted gently. "None of this was your fault. It was mine, for being so obsessed with my career that I couldn't see what was right in front of me." Emily nodded slowly. "The past is the past. What matters now is Olivia." "And the future," Michael added cautiously. "Our future, together or apart as her parents." "Yes," Emily agreed, "the future." They both knew there was still a long road ahead. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. It would take time, patience, and dedication to fully mend old wounds. But that night, as the silence settled in the small apartment, something fundamentally changed between them. A first step had been taken, not only by Michael on his path to redemption, but by Emily as well, on her path to trust again. And maybe, just maybe, that small step could eventually lead to a new road, different from what they'd imagined years ago, but just as valuable. A road where Olivia would grow up with both parents in her life, working together to give her everything she needed, especially the love they both had in abundance. And perhaps that small step might one day guide them toward healing the rift, forging a new bond that neither had dared to hope for before. Snowflakes fell softly outside the window, creating a perfect postcard scene. Michael adjusted the last ornament on the small Christmas tree he'd set up in his apartment, while Olivia, sitting on the floor, carefully wrapped the gift she'd chosen for Emily. There were only 3 days left until Christmas, and life had changed dramatically since that first meeting in the park almost 8 months ago. Michael was now a constant presence in Olivia's life. He picked her up from school 3 times a week, spent most weekends with her, and had even started attending parent-teacher meetings alongside Emily. "Do you think Mommy will like it?" Olivia asked, lifting the poorly wrapped package. Inside was a scarf she'd chosen with Michael's help, in Emily's favorite colors. "She'll love it," Michael assured her, smiling. "Especially since you picked it." Olivia grinned, satisfied, and went back to taping the paper, using far more tape than necessary. Michael watched her with a full heart. Every little moment with her felt like a gift, something he hadn't truly valued in the past but now cherished deeply. The intercom buzzed, signaling Emily's arrival. It was Sunday night, time for her to pick up Olivia after the weekend with her dad. "Mommy's here," Olivia exclaimed, quickly hiding the gift under the sofa before dashing to the door. Michael opened it, and Emily stepped in, bringing a gust of December's cold air with her. Snow dusted her brown hair, and her cheeks were red from the chill. Over the past few months, the tension between them had eased considerably. They weren't exactly friends, but they had found a comfortable balance, united by their love for Olivia. "The tree looks great," Emily remarked, glancing at the decorations. "I helped with the lights," Olivia announced proudly. "I can see that," Emily smiled. "You two did a wonderful job." While Olivia ran to gather her things, Emily and Michael exchanged updates about the week, Olivia's upcoming recital at school, her dentist appointment, the little details that formed the foundation of their parenting partnership. "So," Emily began, hesitant, "about Christmas?" "Yes," Michael nodded. "I've been thinking about that. I wondered what we had planned." They still hadn't discussed the holiday arrangements, and Michael was anxious. It would be his first Christmas with Olivia, and he wanted it to be special. Before Emily could respond, Olivia returned, backpack in hand, studying both adults with a thoughtful look. "Mommy, Daddy," she began solemnly, "I already know what I want for my Christmas present." "What is it, sweetheart?" Emily asked, guessing it was probably some new toy that had caught her fancy. Olivia drew a deep breath, as if mustering courage. "I want my mommy and daddy together for Christmas Eve." The silence that followed was heavy. Emily and Michael exchanged surprised looks, neither sure how to respond immediately. "Together like a family," Olivia clarified, in case they hadn't understood. "At our apartment, with a big tree and presents, and all of us." Michael watched Emily, letting her take the lead. He didn't want to push her, not after how far they'd come. Emily looked at Olivia, then at Michael. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the desire to fulfill her daughter's wish versus the fear of raising expectations that might not be met. "Well," Emily began cautiously, "I guess we can do that. A Christmas Eve dinner together." Olivia's face lit up with a smile so radiant it wiped away any lingering doubt. "Promise," she insisted, looking at her mom. Emily nodded, a small smile of her own. "I promise." On Christmas Eve, Michael parked in front of the blue building, feeling a strange blend of nostalgia and nerves. On the passenger seat lay the carefully wrapped presents, for Olivia, for Emily, and one for them all. A photo album he'd assembled documenting the last few months. He climbed the stairs slowly, thinking about how much had changed. 1 year ago, he'd been alone in his luxurious penthouse, sipping expensive whiskey and working on spreadsheets while the snow fell outside. Now he was about to spend Christmas with his daughter and the woman who had once been his entire world. Emily opened the door before he even knocked, as if she'd been waiting. She wore a simple red dress, and her hair was styled in a way that reminded Michael of their college days, when they first met. "Hey," she said, a hint of shyness in her voice he rarely heard anymore. "Welcome." The apartment was transformed. A larger-than-usual Christmas tree occupied a corner of the living room, decorated with a mix of Olivia's homemade ornaments and classic shiny baubles. Colorful lights hung across the walls, and the aroma of roasting turkey filled the air. "Daddy," Olivia ran to him, dressed in a green velvet dress that made her look like a little elf. "How you came?" "Of course I did," he said, placing the presents on the table so he could pick her up. "I wouldn't miss this for anything." While Emily finished dinner preparations, Michael helped Olivia set the table. It was a simple task, but it meant a lot to him, to be included in these little family traditions. The meal itself was surprisingly relaxed. Olivia led most of the conversation with her enthusiasm about Christmas, stories from school, and her theories on how Santa Claus managed to visit all the houses in just one night. At some point, without noticing, Emily and Michael started to relax too. The conversation ventured beyond the usual Olivia topics, drifting into talk about his work, now taking fewer hours of his life, her residency nearing completion, movies they'd seen, books they'd read. "Remember that first Christmas we spent together?" Emily asked suddenly, surprising Michael by referencing their past. "In the dorm with that tiny plastic tree," Michael chuckled at the memory. "And the takeout because neither of us could cook. Pepperoni pizza and a cheap bottle of wine," Emily recalled with a smile. "Was that wine?" Michael teased. "I thought it was vinegar with dye." They both laughed, and Olivia looked from one to the other, fascinated by this side of her parents' relationship she'd never seen. "Were you boyfriend and girlfriend?" she asked, curious. Emily and Michael exchanged glances, not quite sure how to explain their history to a 4-year-old. "Yes," Emily answered simply. "Before you were born, we were together. And you loved each other," Olivia pressed as only children can. Another silence, heavier this time. "Yes," Michael said finally, looking straight at Emily. "We loved each other very much." Emily held his gaze for a moment, something indescribable passing between them, before she looked down at her plate. After dinner, they gathered around the tree to open presents. Olivia's pile was the largest, of course, the result of two parents wanting to compensate for past Christmases they hadn't spent together. When it came time for the adults, Olivia insisted Emily open her gift first. She tore the clumsy wrapping to reveal the scarf Olivia had so carefully chosen. "It's beautiful, Olivia," she exclaimed, wrapping it around her neck immediately. "Daddy helped me pick it out," Olivia explained, "but I chose the colors because they're your favorites." Emily glanced at Michael, gratitude in her eyes. "You two did a wonderful job. I'll wear it every day." When Michael opened his gift from Olivia, a handmade picture frame with a photo of the three of them on a recent picnic, he had to fight back tears. Lastly, Michael handed his gift to Emily. She opened it carefully, revealing a delicate necklace with a star-shaped pendant. "It's lovely," she said, genuinely surprised. "Thank you, Michael." "Turn it over," he suggested softly. Emily flipped the pendant, finding a small inscription on the back, "For the star that guided my way back home." Her eyes met his, filled with an emotion she didn't try to name or hide. After Olivia finally fell asleep, exhausted from the excitement of the day, Emily and Michael found themselves alone in the living room, each holding a glass of wine, far better than the one they'd shared in college. "Thank you for this," Michael said sincerely, "for letting me be part of her Christmas, a part of yours." Emily nodded, swirling the wine in her glass. "It was a good day. Better than I expected, honestly." "Me too," Michael admitted. A comfortable silence settled, broken only by the soft glow of the Christmas lights and the occasional crackle from the small fireplace. "You know," Emily said at last, "you really have changed, haven't you?" The question took Michael by surprise. "I hope so," he answered honestly. "I'm trying at least. It's not just trying," she said. "You can see it in how you look at Olivia, how you rearranged your life for her. You're a good father, Michael." Her words hit him deeply. Coming from Emily, who'd seen the worst of him, her praise meant everything. "I almost missed out on this," he reflected, gazing at the tree. "I almost lost what truly matters, chasing things that, in the end, mean nothing." Emily studied him. "And now I know where my true wealth lies," he said simply. "In Olivia, in our family, whatever form that takes now." Emily remained silent for a moment, and Michael respected that pause. He knew that despite their progress, there were still wounds that took time to fully heal. "I'm not ready for a relationship," she finally said, voicing what had hovered between them. "I don't know if I ever will be." "I understand," Michael assured her. "I'm not asking for that. I just want to be here for Olivia. And for you as a friend, if you'll let me." Emily gave a small smile. "I think we're doing a pretty good job as parents, aren't we, all things considered?" "Better than I ever could have hoped," Michael agreed. When he prepared to leave, Emily walked him to the door. On the threshold they paused, a moment of uncertainty hanging in the air. "Merry Christmas, Michael," Emily said finally, leaning in to lightly kiss his cheek. "Merry Christmas, Emily," he replied, the warmth of her touch lingering long after he left. Driving back through snow-covered streets, Michael thought about the day. It wasn't the traditional family he'd once pictured years ago. There were no guarantees he and Emily would become a couple again, but what they had built was just as valuable. A partnership built on mutual respect and a shared love for Olivia. The trust that had been shattered was slowly being rebuilt, and perhaps, he mused as the snowflakes drifted outside, that was enough for now. To be present, to be the father Olivia deserved, to build something new from the ashes of the past. The future was still uncertain, but one thing Michael knew: he would never again take his family for granted. He would never again put professional success above the people he loved. He would never again lose sight of what truly mattered. Because now he understood, with a clarity he'd lacked for years, that the true measure of a life wasn't in professional achievements or material possessions, but in the love given and received, in the shared moments, in small traditions like a Christmas Eve dinner with the people who mattered. And in that sense, at last, Michael Carter could consider himself a truly wealthy man.